Yo, what's up everybody? My name is Fidelity, and I come to y'all with a question. A very important one, cause I want to talk about one of the most key, influential, complex, spectacular concepts in all of fighting games. And that's footsies. Footsies, to me, is one of those things that kind of define the fighting game genre. Like, they even made a whole game about it. And it's so sick. It's so sick, actually, that when people see it in play, when someone plays footsies correctly, they lose their shit. How many times has it happened that a pro player plays in tournaments, you're watching him, and then they do a nasty whiff punish, and someone says, that's footsies.
Too far away.
Every time. And people lose their mind. And I wanted to explore that with y'all today. And I wanted to explore why that is so exciting. What makes playing footsies so damn hard? Well, first of all, we have to define what footsies even is. If not, no one would understand what the hell I would be talking about. So, what is footsies? To me, I see footsies as a very intricate battle of threats, where two people are going to be constantly threatening their own attacks, yeah? And they're going to position themselves in a way that they're going to avoid the opponent's attacks while simultaneously positioning themselves in a way where they can set up their own. They're not necessarily attacking, but they're positioning themselves in a way where they can threaten the attacks, yeah? Whilst at the same time avoiding the opponent's threats. Let me see if I can explain this a little better. It's a little confusing. Okay, so I'm gonna whip out the whiteboard, as I feel like it's gonna be a little easier to understand, and it's just gonna be a little more fruitful. Okay, so footsies, what the hell is it, and why is it a battle of threats? I wanted to take Ryu, as he's one of the simpler characters to understand, specifically his crouching mini kick. Okay, if we're gonna take a mirror match with Ryu, and let's say right Ryu throws his own crouching mini kick from this range, well, it's gonna whiff. You know, he hits air. There's nothing he's gonna be hitting. So this Ryu is kind of chilling. He doesn't really have to do anything. No defense, no nothing. Ryu is just dumb and he whiffs. But in a footsie war, or just in Street Fighter in general, or any fighting game, Ryu, the right Ryu, can at any point decide to walk inside the range and be like, okay, I actually want to land my crouching mini kick. So what ends up happening is that he walks forward and he positions himself in a way that the crouching mini kick actually hits now. So yeah, you look at this and, you know, why would you want to do that? You know, that's what most people do. They walk forward and they press the crouching mini kick, and a lot of the time it hits. But what ends up happening is that if left Ryu is actually aware of the right Ryu's movement, and he's like, oh shit, he's kind of creeping up towards me, he wants to land his crouching mini kick, what ends up happening is that left Ryu kind of moves back. And you see how we're kind of in the same point from where we started? If right Ryu presses his crouching mini kick, he hits air again. Okay? So there comes a point when we're playing footsies that if both players are kind of keeping in mind the ranges where the opponent can threaten their attacks, and they're trying to kind of play outside of that so that they just don't have to worry about it, it kind of just ends up looking like this, where both players move in the same range at the same pace. One player moves forward, the other one moves back, and the vice versa, kind of like this. Okay? And it kind of gets a little interesting because, whilst, yeah, theoretically speaking, Ryu would put himself into his own crouching mini kick range if he walks forward, and left Ryu doesn't walk back with him. But at the same time, if left Ryu is kind of predicting that right Ryu, I'm saying that a lot, but you guys are kind of have to deal with it to explain it. If left Ryu notices that right Ryu walks inside his range, then you know what? He can preemptively press his own button, you know? And then this Ryu gets cooked, because this one came out first. Okay? So there's a lot of complexity when it comes to the footsie game. At any point, we can be playing at this range, right at tippy toe range, and this Ryu can just take one micro step in and land it. Impossible to react to. You literally cannot react to a frame of movement. But given enough space and given enough time, players can actually react to, you know, where the opponent wants to position themselves So there does come a point where both players are kind of just maintaining the same range, okay? And practically speaking, when it comes in a match, that's not always going to be the case, okay? A lot of the times, people are going to make mistakes. A lot of times, this guy moves forward, and this guy moves forward too. Or this guy moves back, and this guy moves back too. You know, that's why footsies can get dramatically complicated. Not everybody's at the same page. Not everybody's at the same level of awareness. So footsies can get incredibly complicated when you want to understand when the opponent wants to get in range, when you want to get in range, and when you both are actually in the ranges that you guys want to be. The thing is, I was only talking about what move. Okay, Street Fighter says, okay, now you got to do it with all of them. You know, all of them. Like, case in point, standing heavy punch, you got to do it. Standing heavy kick, sweep, standing medium kick. Don't even get me started on fireballs. Like, you gotta play this game. You gotta understand every range. You gotta understand where you want to position yourself, where the opponent wants to move, and what does that mean in relation to the button they want to set up for themselves. That shit's hard. That's incredibly difficult because it requires a bunch of experience. You gotta truly know what each character does. And truth be told, you're not gonna know a lot of the times. Like, you can make some pretty damn good guesses. Like, for real, with enough experience and enough gameplay, you'll understand what each character does, their ranges, what each movement pattern means. But a lot of the times, they're guesses. You're never truly going to have that insanely solid ultra omega read that's going to get in the highlight reel. Granted, when I say guess, I'm mainly referring to the button press of the opponent, because he can practically pick any button he wants. Any of them, and we will never truly know which button he's going to pick. However, whatever button he does pick, we have to be ready, because we have to enforce some type of consequence in the game. If we're going to be really focused on this positioning, and we're really going to be focused on having the buttons whiff, then we have to whiff punish. There has to be some type of consequence for throwing out these type of normals and them not landing, because if not, the opponent is just going to have free reign. Like, imagine a match where he's just able to do all this stuff. You can't. You have to be ready to whiff punish the opponent, and that's incredibly hard to do because it keeps in mind everything that I spoke about before. Not only do you have to keep in mind the positioning, every button spacing, their options, the option that he's going to pick, but you also have to be ready to react accordingly. And a lot of these normals, they end in milliseconds, you know? They're super hard to do. But once you do it, especially in Street Fighter 6, you get damage. Insane reward. Arguably the most reward in any Street Fighter game. Something else that adds a layer of complexity is just that some normals invalidate the whiff punish game. For example, normally if you want to whiff punish, let's say with Ryu, a good button would be like crouching medium punch or crouching medium kick, you know? Because they just reach. They just get there. But there are just some normals that if you decide to go for, let's say, crouching medium kick, it just won't work. And they're specifically designed for that. Like, case in point, standing medium kick. He doesn't have a hurt box there. So either you're incredibly close, or you just won't be able to whiff punish from a safe range. So the game gets incredibly complicated because, yeah, you'll never know which button he's going to pick. But sometimes, if you still react and he picks the button that doesn't get whiff punished, then good job. You reacted accordingly, but nothing happens. So the game gets incredibly difficult, and Ryu's not even the most egregious part of this. There's another character that I hate whiff punishing him, because I literally have to guess on which button he has to pick. The character I'm referring to is JP. I absolutely hate having to whiff punish this guy, because of his stupid cane, man. I hate his cane. And it makes his neutral like super good, because every time he wants to press anything, virtually anything, I have to keep in mind, oh shit, is he gonna press a cane, or is he gonna press one of like this kick? And when it comes to whiff punishment, it can be very annoying because the cane has weird hurt boxes. You know, I can't whiff punish the cane with normal means. Unlike this normal, which is another key normal of his, which I can whiff punish with almost anything, to be honest. Like, I have to willingly risk myself into playing a more reactive game and use my sweep. So yeah, the whiff punish is possible, but it's incredibly difficult and more risky for that. Okay, so when you want to play a more safer neutral, well, you can't. And that's part of the complexity that goes into whiff punishment and playing the footsies in Street Fighter. Like, you have to keep all of these things in mind. And it comes to a point where it can be incredibly overwhelming. Because, you know, I'm not even talking about, you know, adding stuff like drive rush or adding stuff like projectiles. I'm mainly just talking about footsies. You know, so it can get incredibly hard. Hopefully, I managed to explain myself in a coherent way, and you guys got the gist. Playing footsies is incredibly difficult. So whenever you hear Punk saying footsies, you know why. Because it's quite literally the pinnacle of victory in fighting games, and especially in Street Fighter. Whenever you land a whip punish, you can confidently say, I played footsies. GG, shake my hand. Good night, everybody. Take care.